to welcome all of you to the second day of the Summer of Eclipses forecast event. It is so wonderful to be here with you again. And today we have an incredible lineup. We have Dr. Benjamin Dykes. We have the Grande Dame of Astrology, Christine Arens. And then we also have Living Sky astrologer Adam Gainsburg. And so we're going to do it just like yesterday. They're going to present for about 30 minutes each, and then they're all going to join us at the end for a live Q&A. So please post your questions in the chat. And if you have a question for a specific astrologer, make sure you just put their name. So this question is for Dr. Benjamin Dykes, and then, post your question. You can, and if you're on Facebook, you can be posting your questions there as well. I also wanted to extend a very, very warm welcome to the over 100 people who have already joined our Eclipse Mastery Program, which is the program that those of you who are, this is your first broadcast, you'll be learning about later on during our time together. But I just wanted to welcome you and let you know how excited we are that you are joining us. Okay, so without further ado, Dr. Benjamin Dykes, I would love for you to take it away and tell us what you think we have in store for the Summer of Eclipses that is coming up.
Okay, well, thanks for having me. So my approach to eclipses is a more traditional approach, both in the interpretation and the timing. And the main thing is that I look at eclipses mainly in a mundane context. So we're talking about politics primarily. And what I'm doing in my later presentation later in the month is looking at some eclipses for wars and other things and comparing them to the nativities of rulers. So that is how I'm bringing eclipses together with natal charts. The other difference is that in the traditional approach, the effects of the eclipse do not begin right away. They can begin as many as 9 to 12 months later. And there were special techniques for determining how long the effects would last, when would they begin, and when would they intensify. So that means that an eclipse that happened maybe a year or two ago will only now be starting to manifest. And so I do have a couple of eclipses to talk about, one which just finished, but I think we'll see the aftermath. Another one will start, what I call the shared peak of the eclipse, will begin in September. And then we have the eclipse for this summer, which according to the older rules, we will begin to see in March of 2019. So I can start talking about all three of those eclipses, some of the things that I'm seeing in them, to give people an idea how this works. Does that sound all right to you?
That sounds fantastic. Love it.
So the first one is an eclipse from 2015. This was an eclipse that was visible across Europe and in the Near East and North Africa. It was on March 20th, 2015. And I'm going to call this the Brexit and terrorism eclipse. So although it happened in March of 2015, based on where how long the eclipse lasted and where it was in the heavens, it didn't start to peak and intensify until around August 2016. That would have been the start of the most intense period. August 2016 to January 2017. And there are a number of interesting features to this eclipse that affects Europe, North Africa, and the Near East. For one thing, the eclipse happened in the 9th house. So that brings in migration, foreigners, and ideology. And the way I see it, various features in this chart, is that the Trump election, the Brexit aftermath, and the terrorist incidents across Europe, they all came together in a kind of mass hysteria and mass panic among many people across Europe especially. So that although that officially ended, the most intense part, around January, I think we're going to continue to see how those events will affect European elections for the next few months. So we're not looking just at a single event, we're looking at a cascade of events over time that will have consequences afterwards.
Okay, Ben, can I ask you one clarifying question real quick? Kate would like to know the 9th house of what chart?
Okay, this is for, I cast this chart for Stockholm, which could almost see the entire eclipse. The eclipse line kind of went near the Arctic and Scandinavia, but it was still visible across Europe.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an issue with some of these eclipses. If they cover a broad area of the Earth, the ascendant will be different from city to city. The midheaven will be different. But that's what I saw in this chart cast for Stockholm. And when we compare this chart to Trump's nativity, we can see that there are some really close connections with this eclipse. But unlike other, say, war eclipses or eclipses that show attacks, there's nothing in the chart that really shows any, harmful squares or anything with his chart. So although I think his election and his life was related to these events, and many people were inspired, or inspired or terrified by his election, his life was closely related to the meaning of the eclipse, but it doesn't show any particular harm to him from it, like in some other war charts that I will go over in my later talk. So that's just finished, and we'll see some of those consequences. But another interesting one is from last March 9th, 2016, and this went all the way across the Pacific Ocean and was visible as far north as China, North Korea, Japan. It passed through Indonesia. It was visible in Australia. And that is going to hit its peak intensity from around this September to next April. There are some indications of suffering, great change, and possibly war through this eclipse. And I think what we will at least see is a great realignment of politics in the Pacific. So I'm not necessarily saying that, war in North Korea, although that's possible, but there could be a great realignment of politics that totally changes how a place like North Korea is treated.
And Ben, are we talking about solar or lunar eclipses or both?
I will only talk about solar eclipses here, because traditionally the solar eclipses were more important, and because the sun is a special significator of a king or leader, it tends to have higher level effects. That was the older view. And in the older view, for every hour that the eclipse lasts, it means 1 year of effects. So a 2-hour eclipse means 2 years of effects. But for a lunar eclipse, each hour is only a month. So it means it lasts for a shorter time and might have more lower level effects on, agriculture, animals, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So it's a different approach to eclipses than we normally think of.
Right. Okay. All right. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, not at all. And the other thing is to note is that the meaning of people were used to be terrified of eclipses, and there's the old image of the people, medieval people looking up at the eclipse and running for their lives, and that's so maybe I should say a little bit about that. And it's that first of all, the older approach was that the effects don't begin right away. So running at the site of an eclipse doesn't make sense. But also the essential meaning of the eclipse is change, and sometimes drastic change. So although we might think of the worst things like a war, it could mean a great realignment of politics, or that a long-standing political party or political assumptions gets overturned. There's some kind of major change or transformation that happens because the light the light to the earth is being eclipsed. Then the third one that I'd like to talk about is the eclipse for this summer. And so a couple of things about this eclipse. It's happening at 28 Leo. And so the sun is about to leave the sign, and generally when planets are about to leave a sign, it means that some current state of affairs is coming to an end and something totally new is about to begin. So it shows great change and transition. One of the more angular planets in the chart is Saturn, who's in the ascendant, and I'm casting this for Washington, D.C. And because he's Saturn and he rules the second, I'm thinking possibly a time of financial burdens. The Lord of the Midheaven, which especially shows the leader in the government, he's in Virgo, in his own house in exaltation, but he's burnt under the rays and he's not visible. So my thought is maybe secret business deals, concealed talks, which could be good or bad depending what they are, and possibly corrupted media. If we think of of Mercury as being the media, it could be corrupted media. It's possible that Mercury indicates things like intelligence services, so the secret use of intelligence could be something like that too. A couple of notable things about this eclipse is that Mars is making what we call his morning appearance. And that means that within a couple days of the eclipse, Mars will be, right now at the eclipse, he's so close to the sun that you can't see him. But within a few days, he'll be far enough away that he'll be suddenly visible in the morning. And when a planet does that, it's like an actor taking stage and being in the spotlight. So to me, that means that conflict and possibly war, an actual war, will appear. But here's an interesting thing. Mars is separating from Jupiter and applying to Saturn. And this is a situation with those three planets that is specifically discussed by some of the old mundane astrologers. And the way they thought about it was that Mars represents a kind of accusation or conflict. So when Mars is going from Jupiter to Saturn, he represents some kind of accusation made from a Jupiterian type person or level of society to a Saturnian type person. And the old rule says this, that an accusation will come to the king from a Jupiterian type person. And this would be someone close to the president, a noble or highly respected person, maybe a rich person, or they say a man of justice. So this could be something like a court. Some kind of accusation or rebuke coming from that kind of person to the king, because they thought of Saturn as being the king. But they said, because Jupiter is also applying to Saturn, they said eventually everyone will come around to the king's way of thinking. So I think this means, if this works, it means there's going to be some kind of conflict and accusation, maybe from a court or someone in government, a Jupiterian type person, against the White House or the president, but eventually the president will have his way. there's another kind of humorous. Should I wait and stop for questions, or do you want me to keep going?
No, just one quick question from
Yeah.
Claire. She's saying USA Sibley chart? Question mark.
No, this is purely in the eclipse chart.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, purely in the eclipse chart. So I've got this cast for Washington, D.C. The ascendant is 3 Sagittarius.
Okay. All right, great. And then Nevenka says, does Jupiterian mean someone who is common?
You mean like a...
Is it like a common person, sort of? I mean, I think you addressed that, but...
Right, no, generally Jupiter is seen as either a noble person or a rich person, someone with a very high profile, and often someone who commands a lot of respect.
Okay.
So in some places that could be like a religious person, a religious figure.
Right.
They often associated it with the nobility and people who are, or business interests, who are often just below the level of the official leader and king.
Got it. Okay. And then when you have said multiple times that the eclipse date isn't actually the most important date, it's more the triggering. So with everything you just said, when would you think these types of events are going to be occurring?
This should intensify from March 2019 to October 2019. Now, we might see the beginnings of what will happen before then. And but this intensity shouldn't happen until starting early 2019. In fact, one of the things that I've been doing is tracking Saturn transits to these eclipse degrees. And in my training, I will do this for the World War I eclipses. But I noticed that Saturn, and I also think I tracked it for some terrorist attacks. Well, around December 11th of this year, 2017, there will be a Saturn transit to the eclipse degree. So it could be that some event around December 11th will kind of give a preview as to what will slowly unfold and then become big news in early to mid 2019.
Okay. All right. We have so many amazing questions flooding in.
Okay.
I think what I want to do is let you finish. And
All
then
right.
if we have time, I'll ask a couple questions now. If not, we'll save some of these questions for the end.
Okay. So let's see. Okay, so those are some general statements about the eclipse itself. Now let's turn to how it relates to Donald Trump's chart. And in my training, I will give you a number of rules of things to look at. Look at this planet in the eclipse and compare it to his chart. Look at this place in the eclipse, compare it to his chart. And there are a couple of things to note. One is that the eclipse position and the lord of the eclipse, which is the sun, since it's in Leo, that degree is directly on his natal ascendant and within a couple of days or a couple of degrees of his natal Mars, which is the lord of his ninth. So what that says to me is that these events will be very closely related to him personally and what he's doing. The Mars, we have to consider that Mars could mean war, because Mars, is a planet of war. That's a little tricky to pin down, I think, with the United States, because since we are so powerful, pretty much any war will involve us. Any political development will somehow involve us. My question is, does the eclipse show harm to Trump? What kinds of relationship to his activities does it show? And here are a couple of things. His natal sun, because the sun rules the eclipse, the natal sun does not really seem to be doing anything bad in his natal chart. It's in his 11th house. It's not harmed. The natal Jupiter, or his Jupiter, which is the lord of the ascendant of the eclipse, that does suffer some harm in his natal chart, and Jupiter rules his 5th. So one thing is, it could relate to one of his children. his children could be involved in this somehow. One kind of humorous thing is that both the eclipse chart and his natal chart have an interesting feature. It's that Venus is making what we call a superior square to Jupiter. So they're in a square, and she is in the upper position from Jupiter. And the natal meanings of this are that the native, because of the native's love of Venusian things like women, wealth, and that kind of thing, he receives a lot of blame. So one possibility is some kind of scandal that goes on. So here's, to sum up, because I know we have some questions, here's a summary. One possibility is a war or a terrorist attack. That's because of the Mars, and because Mars rules the 9th in his chart. But there are no squares or oppositions here. So that doesn't speak of great harm to me. It could be domestic violence. This violence could be domestic. Could be leftist street violence, or violence that provokes the National Guard, or calling a state of emergency. There could be secret dealings and scandal and corruption, either through business deals or the media, perhaps trade developments. This could be related to friction in Europe and NATO and the US's involvement in it. Because one thing I would note is that the 1914 eclipse was at 27 Leo. So this could reignite, old politics from World War I, which I think we're already seeing return. So Trump will be more at the center of this, but I don't see anything in his chart and the relationship to his chart that shows real harm. So although there could be scandal and there could be a lot of controversy, I don't see great harm from this. And because eclipses can just mean bringing an end or a transformation to things, this could be just partly a new political realignment of the parties in the US that we have not expected before. And it seems to me we could all agree that both of the political parties in the US are in great crisis. Both of them received a great shock by the last election. So those are my summary thoughts. And then that Saturn transit in mid-December could be an early preview.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so Kate asks, we've been so focused on the USA for this eclipse, but it was just announced that Prince Philip will retire from public life. Might this be the death of Queen Elizabeth?
For this summer's eclipse?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what she's talking about.
Well, I wouldn't see it that way, because the eclipse is not visible in Europe, and because the timing of the eclipse doesn't make the effects intensify before then. It's possible. Suppose she does die, you could see that as being a tail end of the eclipse that I said has just kind of finished intensifying. That was the 2015 eclipse. But I wouldn't see that as being connected to this one. I don't think. I don't see how that death could have that great effect on the U.S.
Okay, and obviously, because this has been a question that's come up a lot, because the eclipse is fully visible over the United States, it is having a greater impact on the United States, correct?
Right.
Okay, all right. All right, so Siobhan wants to know, if these effects last for 2 years, might you keep the materials related to the Eclipse Mastery course available for 2 years? Yes, Siobhan, we might. That is a great idea. And for those of you who are just joining here for the first time, you didn't join us yesterday, we are having an Eclipse Mastery program that is launching on May 14th. So I'm going to actually give a little preview for that here in just a sec. Is there anything else that you wanted to leave us with for now, Ben, before we bring you back on for the Q&A at the end?
I don't think so. No, I think maybe we'll wait to the Q&A. I'm sure there will be plenty to talk about then.
There will be. Okay, wait, one more. Sorry, I can't hold myself back. All right, so Patty says, so many people are talking about a potential civil war due to the polarity currently happening. Is that possible?
For the U.S.?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this would have, I mean, this, let me think about that for just a minute.
Okay, and while he's thinking, I wanted to just say to the Facebook friends out there that you can ask your questions in the dialogue under this video. Also, give us a like, give us a heart, share this. You can help other astrology-loving friends see this broadcast by engaging with us, because then Facebook will show the video more. So if you're enjoying the content, please give us a like or a heart or share it with your friends. All right, thank you.
I'm not exactly seeing that from this DC eclipse. One thing is that I would want to see Mars and or Saturn, and preferably Mars, make a really close square to the ascendant of the eclipse. Now, he's at 20 Leo. If there was a place in the US that had a 20 Scorpio ascendant, then I could see something more dangerous for that area. Again, it's a little hard to say because the eclipse is so broad. You know, how can we limit to just one area? But so if there was a place where the eclipse ascendant was at 20 Scorpio, then he would be harming it by a superior square. And that would be more ominous.
Okay. All right. Do you think the stock market is going to be affected?
I could maybe see that in the sense that Saturn in the ascendant is the Lord of the second. So that could affect finances and assets.
Okay.
So
and when would you think that would happen?
Well, the eclipse doesn't fully intensify until early 2019. But again, we might see some early indications before that.
Okay. So Marina says the eclipse is going over primarily the red states. Is this affecting those a lot more? And how will that be seen for our government?
The quick answer is I don't know, and I'm not sure if we can be that precise, you know, because a lot of politics is regional and not closely identified with just one place. The eclipse will be going, because the eclipse will also be going through, you know, places like Oregon, which is, and Washington State, which are very blue. So I don't think I'd want to be that specific.
Okay. All right. So we have some awesome questions about the housing market. I think maybe the why early 2019, maybe we could just cover real quick. Why are you saying 2019 for the effects?
Sure. Because in DC, the total length of the eclipse is 2 hours and 45 minutes. So if each hour is a year, that's a total of 33 months. So 33 months of effects. But because of where it's visible in the heavens, those 33 months won't begin for a while. So there's a lag time before they begin. And then in those 33 months, they won't intensify till the middle. So you've got like a bell curve. But that whole bell curve doesn't begin until later in this year or early next year.
Okay, great. All right, so we are going to need to shift. There's so many amazing questions for you now, some about finances, and so we will cover those in the Q&A. So make sure you stick around, everyone, because we're going to bring Dr. Benjamin Dykes back on and ask him some more questions at the end. Can you just real briefly let us know what specifically you're going to be covering in the Eclipse Mastery Program so people can know what your topic is going to be?
I'll go more carefully into the timing and interpretation of an eclipse, a general interpretation, and I will look at a couple of World War I eclipses and how they relate to key battles and key leaders like Franz Ferdinand and Kaiser Wilhelm. I'll look at some eclipses for terrorist attacks like 9/11 and the Khobar Towers, and then I will look at this 2017 eclipse as well.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so we have over 100 people who have already joined us for the Eclipse Mastery Program. I'm going to show you a short video to give you some more insights into what we're going to be covering as a part of this program. Dr. Benjamin Dykes will be joined by 5 other eclipse experts, the other ones that have been on this Summer of Eclipses forecast panel. So I'm going to share my screen and share this with all of you now. And then next up we have again, I'm referring to her as the Grande Dame of Astrology because it was so adorable when I told her that other people were referring to her as the Grande Dame of Astrology. And I said, is it okay if I call you that? And she gave the cutest chuckle and said, well, yes, I guess I am. So it's gonna stick, at least for me. All right, so enjoy this video and we'll see you in just a few minutes. We'll have Christine on with us.
Eclipses are powerful planetary events that shift cosmic energies and help us wake up and pay attention. In the dance of life, they're often turning points. They can change the very foundation of who you are and who we are as a society. So why do eclipses remain a mystery in astrology today? And why do they often bring fear to the masses? With a monumental total solar eclipse coming up in August, directly over the heartland of America, we set out to find answers for you. And what we've uncovered may surprise you. There's a hidden subculture of astrologers who've dedicated their entire lives to the study and research of the power of eclipses. These astrologers hold a veritable treasure trove of information and knowledge that, if known, could fundamentally alter the way you look at eclipses forever. Today, I'm thrilled to announce a new training opportunity where you can learn from these select few who have literally written the books that define our current understanding of the elusive subject of eclipses. Allow me to introduce the Eclipse Mastery Program, a special 6-week online training featuring the world's top 6 astrology experts and eclipse teachers. Finally, you can learn how to interpret eclipses in different types of charts, how eclipses coincide with historical events or portend future ones. We've created an intimate setting where you can learn the secrets of eclipses with clarity and confidence. For a short period of time, we're opening enrollment for our new Eclipse Mastery Program. We'll be closing enrollment soon because classes are starting shortly. So register today to reserve your spot. Simply click the button below and complete the form to join us. First, we have award-winning astrologer Bernadette Brady. She's often credited with writing the book on eclipses, and she'll be showing you how to determine which eclipses will have a strong influence on you. She'll also help you gain an understanding of the Saros Cycles and how these cycles give you insights into the meaning of any particular eclipse. Bernadette will also shine light on the special correlation between eclipses and the star Regulus. Next, you'll be learning from draconic specialist Christine Skinner, who's renowned for her predictive abilities and the author of Financial Universe. She'll give you an understanding of the draconic zodiac, teach you how to calculate your draconic chart, show you how to integrate it with your tropical chart, and help you determine karmic connections. These are powerful teachings you won't want to miss. Then you'll be studying with Ben Dykes, author of Astrology of the World and the Logos and Light Philosophy series, who will be teaching you how to interpret eclipses with traditional techniques. He'll also show you how to combine those techniques with other charts or methods. Our next eclipse expert, Christine Arens, is both a professional astrologer and teacher. Her training will focus on eclipses mundane and natal. You'll discover how to find information from various resources. You'll also learn the mechanics and influence of the lunation cycle, especially how it impacts the upcoming Great American Eclipse. And then you'll hear from Adam Gainsburg, who's the author of 4 astrology books and teacher of the Living Sky technique. He'll be teaching you about eclipses, nodes, and soul healing. You'll find out why eclipses tend to reflect some of your biggest challenges, as well as your most potent gifts, and how the nodes of the moon can help you to contextualize it. Of course, last but not least, we have our very own Donna Woodwell, editor-in-chief here at Astrology Hub. For those who are new to astrology and eclipses, she'll help you find the eclipses in your own charts. She'll explain how eclipses work and suggest techniques for you to use their transformative energies wisely. Our Eclipse Mastery Training Program gives you 6 weekly video training modules containing over 9 hours of training material, weekly live Q&A sessions with each of the experts, and a private members-only Eclipse Facebook group where you can meet other students and exchange ideas. We realize that for many of you, this is an amazing opportunity, but the truth is we want to make this training simply irresistible. So when you register today, you're going to get 3 extra valuable bonuses that I know you're going to love. We prepared a custom 150-year eclipse ephemeris you can use to identify which eclipses had a direct influence on your astrology chart, as well as the events in your life which followed. Second, we've partnered with The Mountain Astrologer, recognized as the best professional astrology publication in the world, to bring you their top 3 eclipse back articles written by world-renowned astrologers. So we're thrilled to give you the opportunity to access it now from the comfort of your own home, no matter where you are in the world, and all at an affordable price. And just at the right time, before one of the most important eclipses of the century, so you can be prepared and not caught off guard. The eclipses this summer can be the catalyst to help you attain an expanded level of awareness, so you can work with the energy for you, the collective, and for the good of the world. Again, registration is closing soon because we'll be starting the live calls shortly, so make sure you click the button now to register today. I look forward to meeting you on the inside of this powerful eclipse training, and thank you for listening and being a part of our growing community.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that, and I wanted to welcome our newest members of this course already: Will, Lisa, Bob, Felicia, Lorraine, Susan, Kristen, Kalineka, and Carolyn. Welcome to the Eclipse Mastery Program. It's so wonderful to have you. And I just wanted to say a couple more things about the course before we bring Christine on. Registration closes May 12th, and when you register now, you will get instant access to all of your bonuses. So if you want to have a little bit of time before class starts on May 14th, you can register now and get instant access. And then people have been asking about, you know, if maybe you're taking a vacation at the end of May or in June, and you're wondering about how long the courses will be available for you. We are going to leave the portal open now, actually after that suggestion, probably for the next 2 years, so that we can all be tracking the effects of the eclipses. But you don't have to join everything live. Everything's recorded. You can view it and download it at your convenience. So don't worry if you can't make it all at that time. So, okay, let's transition now to Christine Arens. Christine, are you there?
I am here.
All right. Yes.
Oh, okay.
You sound surprised. We can see you.
Well, I've got a blank screen. I've got the pictures of you and me on the right side. There
All right. There we go. There we go. Okay. So we are now officially on you, Christine. Spotlight on you. So tell us what you think the Summer of Eclipses is going to bring for all of us.
This is going to be one heck of an eclipse for the United States. There's no question in my mind. I do eclipse programs for a number of astrological organizations here in the metropolitan Midwest. And I've been doing these for, I don't know, 20 years now. My first eclipse lecture was back in 1974. So it's been a while that I've been interested in this. And over the last 20 or 25 years, I've done these programs on a regular basis. And I have seen some interesting patterns, let's put it that way. But my primary focus has been on eclipses in natal charts, which are extremely rare, and how eclipses affect natal charts. And I got involved with all of this because I was born with a natal solar eclipse. And when I found this out, this was back in the 1960s, I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. I'll read up on this and I'll learn about it. And that was when I realized there is not a lot of material available. You need to really hunt and peck to be able to come up with any kind of information. And in the course of the last 40, 50 years that I've been doing astrology, for about 20 years, I wrote a lunation column, which follows the cycles of the moon. And of course, the eclipses are very special parts of that general lunation cycle. And there are a couple of things that I found extremely interesting when I started looking at that August solar eclipse. The first is something that I don't think most astrologers are even really paying attention to, and that is the location of the eclipse in the lunation cycle. And this is something that I talk about in my program, because new moons move backwards through the zodiac. We actually have 2 new moons in Leo this year, which is very unusual. You only see that every couple of years. But what is really extraordinary is that second new moon is the eclipse, which gives it like a double whammy on power. So it's not even just an ordinary eclipse, it's like a super eclipse. Then another thing that I looked at was President Trump's chart. And I hesitate to look at US charts because there are multiple charts out there. I've done some research on the United States. Some people say use the Articles of Confederation. There's just a lot of questions on the time. And for a good chart, you want a good time. So at any rate, what we're looking at here, I looked at the president. As Ben was saying, he is the significant representative of the country. And the fact that the eclipse path crosses the United States and only the United States makes this a very, very specific situation. Now, when you go back into the ancient astrologers, wherever the eclipse is visible, that is an area that is affected. And of course, for us, it's the US and only the US. So obviously, we are going to be a focus of world attention in many ways, more so than what we are right now even. I think back a couple of years ago when China hosted the Olympics, there was an eclipse that year where the solar eclipse path actually was over China and stopped just short of Beijing. So, I mean, you can see where the eclipse path hits, and those are areas that usually have some significant activities going on. And what is interesting about this one is that the peak of the eclipse occurs in southern Illinois, western Kentucky. It's generally the heartland of the United States. Not that it's directly over the capital, but it really is an eclipse that I feel is going to affect the public in general. Now, the other thing that I have found interesting is my studies of natal eclipses. And what some astrologers have picked up on is that President Trump was born with a natal lunar eclipse. So that gives his particular chart an extra thing to pay attention to. And with a solar eclipse, as I talk about, the moon is more powerful in a solar eclipse. In a lunar eclipse, the sun is more powerful. And for our president's chart, with that lunar eclipse, the moon represents women, it represents the public, it represents emotional feelings, and what you have is these are all being put over to the side. You have a person who is thoroughly in charge of himself. He knows what he wants and how he wants to do things, and his concerns about being a statesman in charge of caring for a country are not really the primary concerns. And this is an issue for me as well. Now, when I looked at the eclipse chart for August, that solar eclipse chart, and I put it with his chart, and Ben talked a little bit about his chart, I was totally stupefied. One of the eclipses that I talk about in my program is a chart for Queen Victoria. And she had a solar eclipse exactly on her ascendant within a few months of her death. I am very concerned about the well-being of our president because the ascendant is directly related to the physical body. And with his son, and well, he's got a Leo, he's got a Gemini sun, but he's got the Leo ascendant, and he has Mars on the ascendant, and the eclipse is affecting both. And of course, you've got the moon on the exact opposite side of his chart there. A lot of people are going to be very unhappy, but they're not going to voice that opinion openly. I see a question about the vice president there. Unfortunately, I tried to find information on Vice President Pence's chart. There is no exact time. And again, astrology, if it's going to be any kind of a real tool, you need that time. But to go back to President Trump's chart, I am very concerned about his health. We're talking about a Leo ascendant. Leo is ruled by the sun. The sun represents the heart. There is, in my opinion, the potential here for maybe a heart attack or some type of cardiovascular physical issue that he will need to deal with. Then we've got that Mars on his ascendant as well. And that is another very significant issue. My concern there is that someone may lash out at him and we may have another situation where there is an assassination attempt similar to what Ronald Reagan went through in the 1980s. I also, in my program, I talk about Richard Nixon's chart and how the eclipse that hit him actually got him out of office. And back in those days when we looked at that eclipse and his chart, astrologers were shaking their heads because 2 months after that eclipse was when he resigned. So there are some very interesting parallels to be drawn here.
Christine, real quick, I just want to clarify. So when you say, when you keep referring to your program, you mean that your contribution to the Eclipse Mastery Program that we were just talking about?
Exactly.
Okay, all right. And then also, are you talking about August? I mean, what time frame are you talking about?
For President Trump, well, again, eclipses, you don't see things happen on that day. And then people go, oh, well, you know, this is not such a big deal. But as Ben said, eclipses have long-lasting effects. In the lunation cycle, you usually go from one new moon to the next new moon. And your new moon is your starting point, something new. And you build up and you wrap things up at the full moon, and then you kind of, you know, winnow down until the next new moon. New moon to new moon, except if that new moon is an eclipse. And then you go into an entirely different level of interpretation. So it's not month to month anymore. And as Ben said, he looked at the amount of time that the eclipse would be effective there. I look at the amount of time from the very beginning of the eclipse to the very end of the eclipse, and what that total time period is. And he said it was, you know, 2 years and something. I'm looking at closer to about 5 to 6 years. I know in the program I actually talk about that. But the eclipses layer, and the most recent eclipse will always be the one that is most active. But you're going to have the eclipse from 6 months ago, from the last eclipse season, also hanging around, as will be the eclipses from the previous year, which are still out there in the background. But Ben made a very important point in that the point where the eclipse falls is an extremely sensitive position. And whenever you get a transit to that point, the energy of the eclipse activates. So, well, from out there, never-ending story, no. The eclipses do fall off eventually. So it's not like they go on forever, only for a couple of years, but they layer, and you need to pay attention to this. But it is a transit that will activate the eclipse. When you're talking about natal eclipses, it's a little bit different. If you have a planet, if you have your eclipse making major aspects, and if you have another planet that is involved before the eclipse becomes exact, that planet then becomes a focal point in your life. Not only that planet and the house that it is placed in, but also the house in your chart that it rules. And a lot of people don't take that final step. Okay, well, you know, I've got this aspect going on, and it's Saturn ruling Saturn in my second house. Well, that's fine. But then what house in your chart does Saturn rule? Because not only will that second house of yours in your financial things be activated, the house that is ruled by Saturn will also be involved. And this is something that most astrologers don't look at, but yet I have found to be very, very helpful when you're looking at charts. So anyway, we have the 2 eclipses this summer, the lunar eclipse, then followed by the big solar eclipse. And actually, when you look at both of these eclipses, neither one of them is terrible, which is a saving grace. If it was an eclipse that had some very hard squares or very difficult oppositions, I would say this is going to be a bad situation. But we don't have those kinds of really difficult things to deal with in either eclipse chart. We do have some sextiles and trines, so the eclipse may actually activate some changes that will be beneficial. So in the long run, yes, an eclipse is a big thing, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. And that's another interesting thing. Over the years, I've had discussions with a number of astrologers from all over, and in their thinking, eclipses were always negative. And this is not the way to look at an eclipse. An eclipse is power. It is emphasis. It's like a red arrow, and it says, pay attention here. But that is not all there is. For one person, it may not be good, but for another person, it may be very beneficial. So you cannot look at the eclipse totally on its own unless you're going into mundane astrology. And this is something that Ben was talking about. And there is a very big difference between mundane astrology and natal astrology, which is what most astrologers talk about. Mundane astrology, you do not have the free will that an individual has. There is a very, very significant difference. What you need in mundane astrology is the collective power of the group to work whatever energy is to be coming out of that eclipse. And that does not work the same. I mean, I look at a chart like a roadmap. I mean, you got all these different ways you can go in your life. Here's the nice scenic route. Lovely. It's going to take you twice as long to get anywhere, but it's a pleasant journey. Or you can take the short, quick route that's got the road construction and the potholes, and yeah, it's going to be a bumpy ride, but you'll get there faster. You have the choice. Which way do you want to go? You're going to end up in the same place, but how you get there is under your control. And that's the distinction of an astrological chart. You do have the ability to actually make decisions about, am I going to do this or am I going to do that? So, at any rate, questions or?
Yeah, we do. We have some great questions. I just wanted to ask you a question based on that. So you were talking about the power of choice and the distinction between an individual's power of choice and a group's power of choice. Do you think the group has the power of choice? Do you think there's like a group mind that can?
If they are organized, and that's a real issue in itself. And getting a group to function as a group is a challenge on its own, because everybody is going to have their own opinion.
That is true. That is true. I just wanted to mention now, I'm going to plant the seed in the ground for everyone who's watching. Between the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse in August, so August 7th to August 21st, we're going to have a 14-day global meditation. So we are actually going to come together as a group and do our best to seed and really anchor in the energy of love, the energy of empowerment, so that we can actually affect some positive change. So thanks to technology, we do have ways to organize, and that's the way we're going to do it. Okay, so we have some things, some questions. What's the role of the North Node and South Node in eclipse time in the chart?
The nodes are your real indicators for an eclipse chart. And I talk a little bit about how you can look at a chart and identify whether or not it is an eclipse chart. In some instances, you actually have to really go digging. Now, the work I do, I take all my data from the NASA website. And the irony is, you know, astronomy has become so powerful in contemporary society, but it really developed as an offshoot of astrology. In the ancient times, astrology and astronomy were the two sister studies. They worked together. And the astronomy was meant to be there. It was funded in the Middle East. It was funded in Europe by the great leaders. But the astronomy was funded so that astrologers could have better data to work with. I mean, you go back to somebody like Galileo, who was out there with his telescope. Hello? I don't think I could deal with that. But, you know, this shows you what brilliant people there were doing astrology. And for them to spend their time doing it, obviously they felt there was some merit in it. And I think somewhere on the internet, I'm actually quoted. I had a student, I used to teach classroom courses, and I had a student actually go at me directly and say, "Do you believe in astrology?" And I mean, that's a loaded question. And my response, and I'm quoted, I think, somewhere, simply, "I don't know that I believe in it, but I do know enough to pay attention." And that really is the thought. It's a tool, it's a guide. It's not going to give you every answer, but it will help you. And that's what it's meant to do.
And you mentioned earlier, you said, you know, eclipses are something worth paying attention to. Can you just sum up why you think they're so important for us to pay attention to?
Because they are pulling all that power in one area. If you look at new moons and full moons, these are the times when tides are highest. But when you go to an eclipse, you've got an exact lineup. It's not just a general lineup like you would have with an ordinary new moon or an ordinary full moon. And you look at that exact pull, and it becomes more intensified than an ordinary new moon or full moon. Anything?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, like so many questions. I'm trying to read them and figure out which one I should ask before we go to our next speaker. Okay. So the next one is, so Janine wants to know, when would we, because Ben talked a lot about the effects of the aftermath of the eclipse, but when do you think we'll start to feel the effects of the eclipses this summer?
I don't think we'll feel the effects of the eclipses this year. I don't think we're really going to feel the effects until next year and into the following year. So I'm kind of on board with Ben on my approach to that.
Okay, fascinating. All right, so Christine, thank you so much. And I can't wait for you to come back for the Q&A. I do have lots of questions logged for you, so we'll keep those. And next up, we're going to have Adam Gainsburg. Before we go to him, I'm going to show another video. It's a different video, and this video is going to give you insights into what each teacher is going to cover specifically. So I am going to share my screen here again and just show you this quick clip. It's about 4 minutes. And then next we will go to Adam Gainsburg.
And can you just give us a brief overview of what you're going to be covering in your course?
Right, brief overview. I want to take the students through some of the early writings on eclipses in the Saros series, because that's really, I suppose, my contribution to eclipses in astrology, but also showing them a way of looking at the individual nature of the Saros series and applying that to the chart, so that they can look at an upcoming eclipse, say the one in August, but we get 2 eclipse seasons a year, so they can look at them and then actually make a verging on more accurate prediction of what it's going to impose in their chart or in their client's chart.
Well, I'm going to be talking, as you said, about the draconic zodiac. When I first learnt about this, which would have been about 1987, I was awestruck. I mean, this was just such a find. This explains so many things that had been elusive before. I now use it in my daily work, and I wouldn't be without it.
I was born with a natal solar eclipse, so this is something that has piqued my curiosity. And I started trying to find information, as you said, some 50 years ago, when it was virtually impossible to find astrologers, astrology books, any kind of metaphysical information.
First, we're going to take a more traditional look at eclipses, some of the approaches and methods that were used all the way in antiquity. First of all, in a solar eclipse especially, the sun is a significator of kings and leaders. So by itself, that tells you we're talking about politics. And because the leaders are the most influential in making decisions, they wanted to see how much the leaders were implicated in the events and what the events would do to them.
My approach to eclipses in this talk is going from the basic understandings that we astrologers have when it comes to eclipses, which is the meanings of the sun and the moon. From there, we then start to look at what happens when we join them together, as in a new or a full moon. From there, we start to we'll start to look through and really closely at the places in the Earth's sky, both seen and unseen, where the moon's orbit and the sun's orbit, from our perspective, cross, otherwise known as the lunar nodes.
In the last 18 months, I've been doing the same work with the lunar eclipse series, separating them from the sun and non-genderizing or removing the gender issues from astrology, which I think is really important. And in doing that, developed the lunar eclipse series, researched those. And what I want to share with the students is all of that work as well. And we've got handouts for them, Amanda, which is all my unpublished meanings of the lunar Saros series. So they won't find it anywhere else. It's unpublished, and it's part of the class. So
what I do in my presentation is actually walk you through how I learned about eclipses. It's designed for those of you who may not have as much background in astrology, but really want to get engaged in the course. This brings you up to speed so that you can dive in and take full advantage of the true eclipse experts that have inspired me, and I know they will also inspire you.
I'm going to be talking about not just natal eclipses, but also I'm going to talk about how they are used in mundane astrology, because eclipse charts are specific to a location.
The main symbolism of the eclipse is change, and the destruction of something and the creation of something.
And then I'm going to explain how it works with eventfulness on a global scale, sort of within politics, but also within earthquakes, just trying to see how the interaction of these zodiacs come together.
Learn from you. And for those of you who are interested in joining the Eclipse Mastery Program, you can do so now by clicking the link. Registration is only open for a limited time. So now's the time to join Adam and our 5 other amazing astrologers who are going to be diving very deep into the phenomenon of eclipses. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you soon. All right. Okay, so if you would like to join our Eclipse Mastery Program, you can do so now. The link is in the chat. If you're watching this recording later, the link is in your email or it's underneath the video. So there's lots of places where you could find the link. And please join us. We would love to have you. So let's see, and I just wanted to mention registration closes May 12th. So we will be closing registration because the class starts May 14th. And it goes for 6 weeks. Someone was asking when the final date of the course is. It starts on May 14th and it goes 6 weeks. But you have access to the content for essentially indefinitely. We don't have a time where we're going to be taking it down. Okay, so next, without further ado, we have Living Sky astrologer Adam Gainsburg. And Adam, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Amanda.
All right, fantastic. Okay, so let's hear your perspective on the eclipses happening this summer.
Great. So I'm going to share my screen with you. So it would make it easier for people to see what and receive what I'm attempting to convey here. Let's see. So Amanda, let me know when you can see.
Yep, all good.
Okay, great. So hello everyone. I wanted to start with two basic ideas and then show you something from the sky. And then we're going to go dive in and tell a bit of a celestial story. This celestial environment, which have been referring to now for a few years now and teaching on, called our living sky.
Adam, is there any way for you to make it full screen?
Oh, yes. Let me try. How do I do this? I think like that.
Okay. All right, that's better. Okay.
So this idea of our living sky, in other words, the sky that is not just a flat, posted upon an unchangeable thing, but it's actually living and sentient and interactable, offers us today a bedrock of layered meanings on which to improve our astrology and to deepen our astrology. For me, the living sky seems to operate alongside with, and perhaps beneath and behind horoscopic works such as sign house aspects and all that we can glean from that from ancient times to modern. So as such, in this view, the living sky signifies a type of pervading intelligence or a deeper context within which our modern astrology or practice of astrology today can be held. Okay, so that's where I'm coming from here when I'm sharing with you what I'm going to be presenting here. So next, I'd like to share with you all a video. I'm going to just show it to you, and then I'm going to be taking the rest of my time here to explain each step. So if I could ask you everyone to just connect in with yourself, take a deep breath, and just receive this both cognitively, heartfully, somatically, however you would like to. Let's see, can you see it, Amanda? Okay. So this is the journey of Mercury leading up to the eclipse. And I'm going to be explaining why a little bit later. And again, I'm going to be going through some of these major points here. But for now, please just receive this. Okay, and that I stopped it a little bit before so you could see that is the moment or the maybe a day before the eclipse. Okay, so that's the track of Mercury. Now, why the heck am I talking about Mercury here? So here's where we begin. This is Mercury here. If I can zoom in, yeah. This is Mercury in the middle of the constellation of the fish or the fishes, at his station direct just yesterday or the day, or I think it was, yeah, just yesterday. So this is right about where we are now as we're recording this, as I'm doing this, as we're all doing this live right now. And you can see that this being the constellation of the fishes here is a very I don't know place. For those who are participating in the Year of Astrology, I introduced in that program the practice of I don't know, where we consciously, willingly sit in our bodies with an open heart and we say out loud, I don't know, not as a way to negate something, but it's simply as a way to honor that we're off the hook when we just admit I don't know what everything I might want to know. So you can see here in this liminal space, Mercury is with Uranus. So we don't really know, but it seems like Mercury here, stationed direct, not moving, very high and bright in the sky as a morning star, seems to be wanting or drawing down a kind of mission. So if you know anything about astrology, I'm sure you would have learned about Mercury being the messenger. For my talk here tonight, this short talk, I'd like you to consider something else. I'd like you to consider Mercury as a deliverer. Rather than just conveying information and messages, he actually delivers. And the etymology of deliver means to set free. It means to unobstruct, or to even to materialize, to land something, such as to deliver a child as a midwife would, or a doctor would. Okay? So as we go forward here, just kind of wonder, what is Mercury picking up here in this liminal space that's stationed direct? Remember, if any planet hates station the most, it might be Mercury, because he's so fleet-footed. Okay? So as we go forward here, Mercury is picking up speed. And here is the first benchmark in Mercury's journey. Right there. What is the mark here? Mercury is crossing from southern latitude territory into northern latitude territory. Northern latitude is a very different relationship and transmission of the planets to us on Earth. If the ecliptic, the path of the sun through our skies, represents consensus reality, northern latitude represents reaching for something different, making one's mark within consensus reality, if you will, in a way, commanding one's world or commanding one's reach. Okay, so this mark here, where Mercury is reaching into northern latitude territory, also just a day or two later meets up with the Earth and Grain goddess Ceres. Okay, so he's moving very fast here. He's very fast direct motion and picking up speed, so he's accelerating. This idea of speed and speed trend, accelerating or decelerating, is one of the key factors in looking at the sky as a living sky. So he's also quite far from the Earth, as indicated by his imminent conjunction, his direct conjunction with the sun. Okay, so it seems like that what was seeded or what was received back at the start, that is, as we're doing this teleconference, as we're doing this forecast for this summer, Mercury is receiving something that we can't really know what it is. Plus, with Uranus there, even if we thought we knew what it was, it would be totally unexpected when it finally got revealed. So what's happening here is Mercury is finding maybe his preparation is completing. He's reaching, he's now ready to be put to the test, really. And soon after, as the video I just showed goes, Mercury will reach Cazimi, conjunct the sun. Now notice here Mercury is above the sun. So in this light, a living sky delineation of Mercury above, by latitude, above the sun, would indicate Mercury that is not as ineffectual in mundane matters as it might be if it was behind the sun, that is, at the same latitude, or beneath the sun by latitude. Okay, so there is still some agency, and yet the agency is very hidden. Okay, what I'm trying to do here with this presentation is obviously very different, quite different than a talk on eclipses and the coming two eclipses this summer. But what my aspiration for this talk, in honor of Mercury above the sun and in northern latitude territory for much of the summer, is to build the story, to give you a context for what's happening. In other words, to build the environment for you to understand and consciously participate with the eclipse when it happens in August. Now, I'm just going to say really quickly, and I'll talk about this more a bit later, I could not agree more with Ben and Christine about the, quote, delayed effect of eclipses. I too very much, even though I'm coming from perhaps different perspectives than they are, I could not agree more that what in my research on eclipses, mostly natal and individual charts, the effects are not seen for months or years later. So I'm in full agreement there. So in building this story, I'm trying to give you a way to, again, consciously participate, to have your own experience, which means be in the place that you want to be with the people or not the people you want to be or don't want to be, and you really are there present, okay? So this Mercury over the Sun, this is what I call the transmutation phase of the Mercury cycle, okay? And this actually occurs, this event occurs at 0 Cancer, tropically. Now, that may sound familiar. It's the degree of the Sun at Northern Hemisphere summer solstice, Southern Hemisphere's winter solstice. So just speaking about the Northern Hemisphere, perhaps that what Mercury got in utero or in secret way back at the fishes with Uranus, which he then started to find agency when he reached northern latitude and crossed Ceres, which is always a boon, which always gives form, crossing with Ceres. Now these secrets might become exposed. He's above the Sun here. He is Kazim, but there is a significant amount of latitudinal difference between he and the Sun. He's still invisible in our skies. We won't be able to see Mercury, but the mercurial effect astrologically on us, still it is as if secrets are threatened to be exposed or become exposed. He's also at apogee here, furthest from the Earth. And like I said, this is his fastest direct motion. So he is super, he has a lot of agency here to skirt past, to avoid conflict or threats to his success or to his progress, okay? Remember, Mercury here is, my assumption going in is Mercury is a deliverer. He is charged with delivering something, okay? So a week later, Mercury reaches Mars. Okay. Once again, Mercury conjunct Mars, but Mercury is north of Mars. So the planet that is north generally can be seen to have the support or the reduced challenge from the planet that is below. It can play out in many. This can play out in many ways, but I really like something Bernadette said last night about classically Mars was seen or was imaged to be like rattling of body armor or rattling of instruments of war, rattling of weaponry. And this is kind of a little bit of what I see here. Mars is infusing Mercury with the portents of conflict, the portents of even betrayal here. And this is aligned with the entire, what is Mercury charged to deliver? So he's carrying a package, and each step along this way, his character, his commitment is challenged, and as he proceeds, he and thus we discover what we're really capable of, okay? So this conjunction occurs in close alignment with 2 stars. In fact, the 2 brightest stars in our entire sky, Sirius and Canopus, okay? These stars together, I mean, there's a lot about each star individually, but together, each star, or together, they might signify monumental, like culture-changing, culture-transforming events or achievements that require great effort across continents, massive achievements in the name of progress or improvement, okay? On the shadow side, we also here run into issues of entitlement, power beyond control, and pushing simply too far. So this alignment here, as with all alignments, and in fact, maybe I can just zoom out here and I can show you. Here's Sirius. This is a Sirius. I believe it's a 1 1¼ degree conjunction with Sirius, and even further south here is Canopus. So this is a very close alignment, because when we do planet-star aspects, we're always up projecting or down projecting the planetaries, the star's ecliptical longitude, meaning onto the ecliptic. And so we have this other theme that I believe that the stars are giving us here, and that is simply whatever agenda is being rattled, whatever efforts or coordinated plans are being rattled or being triggered or enlivened. The planners behind all of this fully believe in what they are doing. It's not that they are irresponsible to their aims. This is a mark to me of tremendous willpower and metaphysical, religious, or even cosmological belief. So it's much deeper and much more powerful than if this was occurring without these stars aligned here. Okay, so let's keep going.
Adam, quick question. Yeah. Which stars? Someone was asking if you could name the stars again.
Yes, Sirius, which is the brightest star in our sky, Sirius, and Canopus.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yep. Okay, so let's keep going here. And this next one is kind of extraordinary, and I'm easily impressed, but this one. So please understand that this point that I'm pointing to right here is a full month, a little bit less than a month before the eclipse. So I'm going to zoom in right here real close. So this is July 25th of this year. Again, a little bit less than a full month before the eclipse. What do you notice? This alignment happens at the position of the total solar eclipse, August 21. So what does this portend? So keeping with our Mercury story as the deliverer, is the moon. In fact, let me zoom in a little bit more and show you something here. Can you see that the very thin sliver? This is a baby crescent moon, baby crescent. Just the beginnings of the moon's light returning after the new moon. Okay, with Mercury having traveled all this way and gone through all that it had gone through to continue to deliver, is this the place where Mercury is delivering the goods? Is this the place where Mercury has been charged to drop or to deliver, like the UPS, FedEx, or post office person delivering to your door? Notice too, just a little bit while before the moon, look what Mercury does over here. He comes back into southern territory. Maybe his journey now is finally landing here, and here comes the moon just a few days later in perfect alignment, and in fact, in the exact same sky position as the solar eclipse coming in a month hence. Okay, so a couple things to say about this. Can we finally begin to discern what this celestial package might be? This handoff in July here and the solar eclipse in August might be seen to be overseen by the light of Regulus, one of the royal stars, the marker stars of the ancient sky. Okay. and because I love sharing about stars, let me also say here that it's not just Regulus's effect, it is also Algeba's effect above here. This is what I call the throat chakra of the lion. Okay, it's too much for right now to go into, but to summarize, well, I couldn't possibly summarize. Bernadette and Donna shared, I think, a wonderful take on Regulus in last night's panel. So I'm not going to repeat what they said there, but it does historically correlate, you know, with the effort towards war or battle, whether it could be nation states or it could be between individuals. And there's a whole pathology that you can get into with these royal stars. But suffice to say here that within the Regulian court, Mercury is actually having sway again. Let me explain why now. You're not going to see it here on in the sky, right, in the astronomy software, and you probably won't pick it up on the astrology charts. But this is a place where Mercury is very close to his maximum elongation from the sun as an evening star. Maximum elongation from the sun for Mercury is very close to his maximum brightness. Brightness, the visual appearance of the quality and amount or magnitude of a planet's light in our sky is one of the fundamental sky factors that forms living sky, the living sky technique and living sky astrology. So with Mercury here is super bright. Mercury here is holding court within the Regulusian court, with all the meanings that Regulus brings, and is finally delivering to this baby moon something that it has been charged with. And remember, this is just a month away. This is a portent. So putting all that together, we could probably take about 2 hours to convey all the different possibilities. But where I go, some of the places I go with this is that what has been in the works all spring and summer is now announced or begins to be announced. That's Mercury coming down into southern latitude with the moon, which is a wonderful, mundanely, a disseminator of information because it represents the people and the consensus. It can be the consensus reality. So secret plans, secret agendas now come to light or start to become known. Perhaps they're leaked. Perhaps the leaks were planned from the very beginning. And the eclipse itself then, a month later, potentizes what this delivery is that Mercury has been charged with. So another rendering might say that allies become enemies, enemies start to become allies. I found it very interesting. I believe it was Ben. I think he said two things that I completely agree with and I came to in different ways about the switching of alliances and also the return of old politics, the return of old relied upon alliances between nations start to come under question or get challenged now, and then new alliances have to then take their place. So I really do see that kind of thing happening, that the seeds for which are being planted in the August solar eclipse. And like I said before, I am of the firm belief, and this is how I work with eclipses, both natally and the mundane work that I do also, which is not a lot, but some, is August of next year, August 2018, we might see specifically a theme repeating from this eclipse. And I say that because in August of next year, Mars, which plays a very proximal role in both this summer's eclipses. Mars is less than 4 degrees from the sun in the lunar eclipse and about 8 degrees from the sun and the moon in the solar eclipse of this year. So Mars next year will be closest to Earth perigee, retrograde opposite the sun. And that is what I term the transcendence phase of the masculine, the transcendence phase of Mars. When Mars is exactly opposite the sun retrograde. He is his brightest, we see him for the longest, and he is the closest to Earth. And I feel like this eclipse here, because of Mars's interplay with the eclipse charts, and Mercury's kind of being the deliverer throughout this whole thing, playing with Mars, I do see that this is like I said, a portent, and we want to especially look to next summer, 2018. I mean, not this summer, but next summer, 2018, for what this eclipse might be producing. Okay. I also want to mention here that Mars, in the cycle that is starting, that I've just been covering here, the Mars cycle, he will appear for the first time in our skies on 9/11, September 11th, 2017. That's assuming a 15-degree elongation from the sun, which is pretty standard when it comes to Mars. Different places on the planet, you might be able to see him sooner, or different places later, but I did want to make mention that this year, 2017, September 11th, for most of the planet, Mars will be visible as a morning star for the first time. And that heliacal rising event of Mars, or of any planet, is the mark of what that whole cycle is really about in terms of sign energy. And that will be the sign of Virgo when he heliacally rises. Okay? So again, I thank you very much for your patience. This is not a standard way to present astrology these days, but I figured I got to go out on a limb because I'm finding some great results from this living sky approach, so I thought I'd share it with you tonight.
Fantastic, Adam. Thank you so much. Actually, Sarah says fascinating, totally in awe. So I think a lot of people agree that this is a important and interesting and relevant way to be looking at astrology. We did have a question earlier. Someone wanted to know what software you're using to bring these images to us.
Yes, this is a piece of astronomy software that I got on the internet. It's called Starry Night.
Okay, Starry Night. Okay, Jamie also says fascinating. Yes, absolutely awesome. All right, so do you mind if you can stop sharing your screen, and we'll go to a couple questions for Adam, and then we'll go to the question for the whole panel. Okay, what was the star above Regulus?
Algiba, A-L-G-I-E-B-A. Algiba.
Okay. And I know Regulus is at 29 degrees Leo, but how many surrounding degrees does it affect?
Depends on the application. Mundane, natal. Bernadette has also done brilliant work with star Arens. I'm not sure what kind of orb she uses, but it would really depend on the application of the star.
Okay, great. All right. Okay, I think what we'll do now is first I want to welcome some other new members to the astrology, to the Eclipse Mastery Program. Adelaide, Alice, Lee, Radu, Sandy, Lynn, and Megan, welcome. It is so nice to have you. Thank you for joining us. And then what I wanted to do is share, I just want to go through in a little bit more detail the actual what you get in the Eclipse Mastery Program. So I'm going to share my screen one more time, then we're going to go to the Q&A, so stay with us. Okay, so what you will receive in detail. You will receive one weekly video class with the top Eclipse astrologers that you've seen as a part of this event. So all 6 astrologers have prepared and will be presenting to you a different module each week. Okay, and so these are emailed to you on Sundays. On Sundays, you'll get access. So starting May 14th, you'll get access to the first week of content. And then every Wednesday, we'll be doing a live Q&A with the astrologer that gave you the content for that week. So there's been questions about the time zone. Because we have some wonderful astrologers from the UK this time, we have different times for each of the live Q&As. So hopefully those of you in Europe will be able to join. And if not, we are recording everything. So you will be able to watch the recorded versions. You can send in your questions, and even if you don't get to join live, we're going to do our best to answer as many questions. So your question could be answered in the live Q&A, which then would be given to you as a recording. Okay, you will also, oh, I was just saying, live weekly Q&A. Not only will we be doing the live weekly Q&A, but we'll also be having Q&A in our private Facebook group. So the astrologer for the week will be monitoring that Facebook group, and we'll be answering your questions as we go throughout the week. So that is also available to you. All of the astrologers have included supplemental materials. You'll have access to those. You'll be able to download them and refer to them whenever you need to. Everything is going to be delivered to you in video and audio. So if you're on the go and you're driving and you're doing other things and you want to just listen to the audio versions, you can do that as well. Full transcripts for those of you who like to read the material and study it and highlight it, which I love to do. And then access to the private Facebook community. So this is where you'll be able to join your peers. Again, the astrologers will be in there answering questions. This is where the hub of conversation happens. This is my Aquarius rising part that loves the community building aspect. So this is different than the Astrology Eclipse portal where we've been having conversations throughout the week. This is an intimate group just reserved for those people that are in the Eclipse Mastery Program. Plus, you'll receive the special bonuses, the custom 150-year Eclipse Ephemeris. This was designed and developed by Donna Woodwell and our team, so this will be yours to reference. We have partnered with the Mountain Astrologer. I love the team over at the Mountain Astrologer. We are having such amazing symbiotic relationships. So we partnered with them for this, and they have given us some of their top eclipse articles that have been written throughout the period of time that this magazine has been in publication. So you'll have access to these articles. You can download those as well. And then also you will receive downloadable access to the recordings of this event. So the Summer of Eclipses forecast event happened yesterday and today. You'll receive, it's going to end up being about 6 hours of recordings, and you'll be able to refer back to this content as well. Okay, so in summary, you're going to get the video classes, the live Q&A, supplemental materials, complete video and audio recordings, full transcripts, a private Facebook group, the 150-year Eclipse Ephemeris, the back articles, and the forecast recordings. So the value of this all added up is $1,998, and you can get this now through May 12th only for $197, or 3 payments of $77. For those of you who would rather just stretch that out a little bit over time, we're giving both options. So again, registration is open. The link to register is in the chat, or in the Facebook group, in the Facebook posting, or in the emails that we sent you. We would love to have you as a part of this and hope that you will join us. Okay, that is the end of that. Now we are going to go to the final Q&A with our astrologers. So just, if you do have questions for them, please go ahead and post them in the chat, post them in the Facebook chat, and I'm just waiting for the questions to come in. So Christine, and let's see, I want to be able to see all of you. Let's go into gallery view. So I can't see Ben or, yeah, just Ben, or myself actually. But can you guys see me? Adam, Can you see me? Okay, all right, I can't see me, and that's okay. But I still can't see Ben, so can someone please make his video available? Okay, just waiting for that. I think, actually, as we're waiting for his video to show, I'd love to start with this question. This is to, oh, there he is. Yay. Oh, there. Great. Yay. Great. Okay, can someone, let's see, there's a little bit of feedback. Okay, there you go. To all, the middle of the US has had massive flooding. Does the eclipse portend this continuing?
My response would be yes. The eclipse is in a fixed sign. Fixed signs are often associated with seismic activity. And I have some notes off to the side I can look up going back to the 1980s. There was something published, I believe, in Science as a correlation between eclipses and seismic activity. So my concern is we're having the heart of the eclipse over a fault line that has not really been active for about 150 years or something, and is due to have something happen.
Okay, anyone else want to respond to that?
Sorry, I thought I heard the question was about storms rather than seismic. I didn't. What was it?
Right, it was about flooding, actually.
Oh. But
Well, the last time that that particular fault went off, it changed the course of the Mississippi River.
which I can understand would change weather patterns. Yeah.
Okay, all right, so would an eclipse falling on a progressed planet feel the effect?
I would say absolutely.
Yeah.
But you'd have to, again, look at what planet is it? Is it the nature of the sun, the moon? Is it a solar eclipse? Is it a lunar eclipse? What aspects does it make? What house is it in? What house does it rule? I mean, there's a lot of stuff to look at. But yes, an eclipse on a natal planet, you better pay attention.
Okay. All right. I heard that California may be getting ready for a big earthquake again. Could the eclipse set that off?
I would think so.
I mean, I don't do that kind of disaster prediction, but I mean, it makes sense to me. The older methods would pay attention to the fact that the eclipse is in Leo, and they would say things like, that affects predatory animals and lions. Okay, well, I don't know about that, but I could see. I mean, if I could see something like that happening, but what I want to emphasize about, as I mentioned before, that at least for the Washington, D.C. version of the chart, there's nothing extremely destructive here that I can see. Except perhaps that Saturn in the ascendant is closely squaring the IC, and combinations of Saturn and the IC in the old literature are associated with things like earthquakes. Saturn and the IC especially.
Okay.
So Ben, let me ask you, Saturn being retrograde, would that have changed the delineation in that literature?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah. Okay.
And some of those delineations come from ingress charts, not eclipse charts.
Oh.
But
okay.
A lot of these rules from one branch, they can transfer over. So I could I could easily see that symbolism working for an earthquake or something like flooding. Saturn was associated with floods.
Okay, this question is for Ben. With the Saturn-Mars-Jupiter situation that could present itself in 2019, could there be articles of impeachment brought against the president during that time with no conviction resulting from the proceedings?
That would fit the symbolism. Yeah, that would fit the symbolism. If the Saturnian people, or if the Jupiterian people were legislators bringing charges, that would fit the symbolism.
Okay. Do any of you think that the eclipse will affect the housing market?
I don't know that it will. I did the chart for Washington, D.C. The housing market would be part and parcel to the fourth house, which represents the people and where they live. We don't have any real serious stuff going on between the second and eighth houses, so I don't see any issues there. I'm not terribly concerned about the housing market.
Okay. Anyone else want to say anything about that?
I mean, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Adam.
Sorry, the eclipse chart has Pisces at the I mean, Pisces is the fourth house, opens the fourth house, so it, you know, unseen things, you know, unseen industries that we didn't foresee might be affected, could be affected. And I like what you said, Ben, about the Saturn forming that square to the fourth house cusp. I mean, I'm just talking about the eclipse chart here, not the Sibley, because just the way that, you know, just to focus on the USA Sibley, the U.S. housing market has effects everywhere.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
One thing that occurs to me, and let me say I don't have experience predicting housing markets, but I'm just looking at the symbolism here.
Me too.
We have in the eclipse chart the Saturn squaring the IC. But here's the other thing, and this kind of loops back around to a question I wanted to ask Christine. The degree of the eclipse is right on Trump's Mars. And Mars rules both his ninth and his fourth. Well, we know how he made his fortune through real estate.
Right.
Once we if we're activating that Mars and putting it in a mundane context, that could be something like a battle or war over territory, but could it also be something like some kind of a disaster involving the housing market? I mean, that's a possible interpretation.
I don't really think so.
Yeah.
What my take on it is, the seventh house would represent war outright with outside countries. I think what we're going to see is internal strife like we have never seen in this country since the Civil War. Not on the same terms as the Civil War was, but what you've got is two entirely separate ideological sets of mind, and they are not going to even come close to being able to compromise. It will be a war that is fought strictly within our boundaries, within our people, but it's going to pivot around the president because it's his chart.
Yes, it is. You know, it's interesting. We astrologers, it's a bit of a gift. The president of the country over which this eclipse is crossing entirely, like you say, Christine, it is his chart. I mean, it makes it not a gift, but it makes it, you know,
a lot of amazing content, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Which house system do each of you prefer?
I use whole signs for topics, for, you know, to areas of life, but I do pay attention to how close things are to the angles, and I use the midheaven as an indicator of things like action and profession, the degree of the midheaven. But my normal default houses are whole sign.
I would say I use primarily Placidus, although I will grant you this, Ben. Rob Hand says he's liking whole sign houses more and more.
Yeah, since most of my work is natal, I use Porphyry, and I flip back and forth between that and Placidus. My default is Porphyry, but I will because I started with whole signs. That was my first, and I will always have that in my bag.
Okay, great. Will we see these charts as part of the master classes? Which charts are you going to be showing?
Well, I'm going to be showing Trump's chart. I don't know if you guys are, but I will. So you will have a chance to take a look at it. I've also got Nixon's chart in there with the eclipse and that affected his resignation.
I have 2 World War I eclipse charts, along with the nativities of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and Kaiser Wilhelm II. a couple other eclipse charts for terrorist attacks, and Bush's chart, George W., and then this eclipse and Trump.
In my training, I really focus very strongly on the lunar nodes, and it's more of a teaching, of a training course. So I don't include the charts of the eclipse itself. This is more of an education in looking at at eclipses from the perspective actually of physics and the intersection of physics and astrology.
Okay, great. All right, so I know we talked about floods, earthquakes, but as Leo is a fire sign, could there also be massive wildfire problems happening across the U.S.?
Well, with Mars involved, that's a very distinct possibility.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you say Mars involved, Christine, just for people, what you mean Mars proximal to the luminaries in both eclipses?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Is the August eclipse a north node or south node eclipse?
The August eclipse, the solar eclipse, is a north node eclipse.
Yep.
Okay. At the general time of the eclipse, Saturn is making an exact conjunction to Donald Trump's moon in opposition to Gemini sun and the nodal axis. As the nodes are lunar phenomena, this seems highly significant. How do you factor this Saturn transit in the mix with his moon, sun, and nodal axis?
Wow. I don't have his chart here in front of me. I've got a bunch of other charts, but the nodes are definitely highly significant, and especially so for eclipses. And the fact that Trump's nodes, I mean, his south node conjunct the moon to me is really, really not good. So it's something I'd have to really pull the chart up and take a look at it.
So when you say really not good, what do you mean by that?
Well, a north node eclipse is always considered more favorable because the north node has good energy with it. A south node eclipse is less favorable, but a south node lunar eclipse is really a stinker, and that's what his natal chart is.
The way, what I would say is, so Saturn in the eclipse is on his natal moon to the degree. And what that says to me is not only is Saturn in his natal fifth, but is on a planet in the fifth. So that's children, primarily. And that moon is the Lord of the 12. So that suggests some sort of secret or error involving his children.
Mm-hmm.
When you talked about the Jupiterian, you talked about a Jupiterian influence, like someone maybe basically calling Donald Trump out is the way that I interpreted it. Could that be one of his children?
Because Jupiter rules the fifth, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, could that whole event include the children as well?
Maybe. It's two different types of symbolism. Jupiter rules his fifth, and that's personal to him. But this situation of Mars separating from Jupiter and applying to Saturn is a purely mundane general signification. So, I mean, I guess it's possible, but I'm not really feeling it.
Okay. All right, so people on within our Facebook group are wondering what fault line we were referring to before. We were talking about a fault line that might be affected.
There is a fault line just outside of St. Louis, and the name escapes me for the moment, but it's a major fault line. It has not done anything for a long time, and it's overdue.
Okay. All right. So I had asked if Mars could represent sex in the same kind of situation Clinton faced in 1998. Isn't that part of the 19-year series that Bernadette talked about?
isn't what a part of the night?
Well, could there be some sort of scandal, including sex, I guess, similar to what Clinton faced in 1998?
Oh, I see. Yeah, sure. Because of the Metonic, the 19-year nodal cycle, sure. I mean, that could be, and you can just take the basic symbolism of Mars as sex, but you'd have to find it in the chart and not just call it out and, oh, they could mean that. You'd have to find the evidence for it there.
Well, like I mentioned, both the eclipse and his natal charts have Venus making a superior square to Jupiter, and the interpretation of that was someone who gets in trouble because he loves women and wealth too much. And we've already seen that create one minor scandal for him. So
yeah,
I mean, it is there in both charts.
Okay, what time are you using for Trump when you're looking at Trump's chart?
I'm using June 14th, 1946 at 10:54 a.m.
That's the exact same chart. Yep.
Yeah.
Which I think comes from the birth certificate, and someone was circulating it a few months ago. So the image of his certificate, I think, is out there.
Okay. All right. Well, we are at our time. So I think, and we got through a lot of the questions that came in. So I just want to, again, thank all of you for sharing your wisdom with us. I cannot wait to continue learning from you in the masterclass. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We've had a solid almost over 600 people who've been on live just on Zoom. That doesn't include the Facebook group who's been with us as well. So thank you. Someone had written in, this sounds like a history class that I could enjoy, which is great. So I think, we're making learning fun again, which is awesome. So thank you everyone for joining. And I'm just going to leave us with one last video that you can watch while you are signing off here. And let's see, just need to share my screen. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Uh-oh. Sorry, everybody.
Eclipses are powerful planetary events that shift cosmic energies and help us wake up and pay attention. In the dance of life, they're often turning points. They can change the very foundation of who you are and who we are as a society. So why do eclipses remain a mystery in astrology today? And why do they often bring fear to the masses? With a monumental total solar eclipse coming up in August, directly over the heartland of America, we set out to find answers for you. And what we've uncovered may surprise you. There's a hidden subculture of astrologers who've dedicated their entire lives to the study and research of the power of eclipses. These astrologers hold a veritable treasure trove of information and knowledge that, if known, could fundamentally alter the way you look at eclipses forever. Today, I'm thrilled to announce a new training opportunity where you can learn from these select few who have literally written the books that define our current understanding of the elusive subject of eclipses. Allow me to introduce the Eclipse Mastery Program, a special 6-week online training featuring the world's top 6 astrology experts and eclipse teachers. Finally, you can learn how to interpret eclipses in different types of charts, how eclipses coincide with historical events or portend future ones. We've created an intimate setting where you can learn the secrets of eclipses with clarity and confidence. For a short period of time, we're opening enrollment for our new Eclipse Mastery Program. We'll be closing enrollment soon because classes are starting shortly. So register today to reserve your spot. Simply click the button below and complete the form to join us. First, we have award-winning astrologer Bernadette Brady. She's often credited with writing the book on eclipses, and she'll be showing you how to determine which eclipses will have a strong influence on you. She'll also help you gain an understanding of the Saros Cycles and how these cycles give you insights into the meaning of any particular eclipse. Bernadette will also shine light on the special correlation between eclipses and the star Regulus. Next, you'll be learning from draconic specialist Christine Skinner, who's renowned for her predictive abilities and the author of Financial Universe. She'll give you an understanding of the draconic zodiac, teach you how to calculate your draconic chart, show you how to integrate it with your tropical chart, and help you determine karmic connections. These are powerful teachings you won't want to miss. Then you'll be studying with Ben Dykes, author of Astrology of the World and the Logos and Light Philosophy series, who will be teaching you how to interpret eclipses with traditional techniques. He'll also show you how to combine those techniques with other charts or methods. Our next eclipse expert, Christine Arens, is both a professional astrologer and teacher. Her training will focus on eclipses mundane and natal. You'll discover how to find information from various resources. You'll also learn the mechanics and influence of the lunation cycle, especially how it impacts the upcoming Great American Eclipse. And then you'll hear from Adam Gainsburg, who's the author of 4 astrology books and teacher of the Living Sky technique. He'll be teaching you about eclipses, nodes, and soul healing. You'll find out why eclipses tend to reflect some of your biggest challenges, as well as your most potent gifts, and how the nodes of the moon can help you to contextualize it. Of course, last but not least, we have our very own Donna Woodwell, Editor-in-Chief here at Astrology Hub. For those who are new to astrology and eclipses, she'll help you find the eclipses in your own charts. She'll explain how eclipses work and suggest techniques for you to use their transformative energies wisely. Our Eclipse Mastery Training Program gives you 6 weekly video training modules containing over 9 hours of training material, weekly live Q&A sessions with each of the experts, and a private members-only Eclipse Facebook group where you can meet other students and exchange ideas. We realize that for many of you, this is an amazing opportunity, but the truth is we want to make this training simply irresistible. So when you register today, you're going to get 3 extra valuable bonuses that I know you're going to love. We prepared a custom 150-year eclipse ephemeris you can use to identify which eclipses had a direct influence on your astrology chart, as well as the events in your life which followed. Second, we've partnered with The Mountain Astrologer, recognized as the best professional astrology publication in the world, to bring you their top 3 eclipse back articles written by world-renowned astrologers. So we're thrilled to give you the opportunity to access it now from the comfort of your own home, no matter where you are in the world, and all at an affordable price. And just at the right time, before one of the most important eclipses of the century, so you can be prepared and not caught off guard. The eclipses this summer can be the catalyst to help you attain an expanded level of awareness, so you can work with the energy for you, the collective, and for the good of the world. Again, registration is closing soon because we'll be starting the live calls shortly, so make sure you click the button now to register today. I look forward to meeting you on the inside of this powerful eclipse training, and thank you for listening and being a part of our growing community.